This map marks the start of the green minisode. It's got a cool aesthetic. I like what he does with the animated lights. This map is pretty intense, pretty rough, but fortunately also very short. There's just one part that's really freaking hard, another part that's kind of luck dependent, and everything else is pretty doable. The structure is also quite linear. You have a choice whether to go for the red or the yellow key first, but there's really only one correct choice there, so it's essentially an entirely linear sequence of scares. This part would be very straightforward except for the 4 archviles mixed in with the back of the crowd. At first it's not a problem because they're more than 1,000 map units away and won't attack on their own, but it gets kind of... it can go a lot of ways. Usually I make my break for it earlier than this. I almost just got blocked in the narrow end, but that went well overall. So this part is nasty and kind of luck dependent. The six barons there are all they all have sound blocking walls around them, and they're all standing on teleporters blocking the entry of the 2 far ones, or I guess the 4 far ones have archviles that will teleport in. The 2 nearest ones have revenants that will teleport in. So you want to ideally get everything tethered right to the Cyberdemon as soon as they warp in. But if it doesn't happen that way, you can get into real trouble. Like if multiple 2 or 3 archviles come in and they're all mad at you, like there's no real cover here except for, you know, it's basically just a rectangular room with just this one annex. So a lot of archviles is a huge problem. I blew a BFG shot earlier because I thought I'd have to deal with 2 of them, but one of them got mad at the Cyberdemon, so there you go. If you go too far to the left, you'll wake up all 3 of these guys at once, and no one will be mad at the Cyberdemon, so that's bad. I don't know why that close guy didn't activate. That's really weird. Honestly, don't understand. Got kind of beat up here, but this is honestly pretty good. I'm scared of the Cyberdemon suddenly getting interested in me again. There's no more archviles, so I'm just, gonna get infighting there. We can move on to the next step. This is the hardest part of the map. This is really bad. So, in addition to the mancubi on the periphery, you have a gigantic horde of imps warping in at the top and the bottom of the stairs. And the bottom group also includes specters, for good measure. And that's really, if it was just pure imps, top and bottom, it would be so much easier. Because the specters, they're slippery, they're hard to see. I honestly think this would be insanely difficult if we were playing in hardware, on software. Because they'll get around you, they love to slip around and from behind and get right in front of you and kill you on your own rocket. Like, a lot of stuff in Doom looks harder than it is. This is harder than it looks. It's just so easy to die. On rocket self-damage, primarily. You're given 100 rockets and it is not enough. The BFG has limited utility here, partially because the enemies are, the formation is deep and not wide, and partially because they're all small fire anyway. BFG shot is scarcely better than a rocket, except that it won't damage you, and comes out much slower. I mean, if things aren't going as well as they were this time, you can finish out your rockets with one BFG shot and then switch to the shotgun. But I don't know. It's less of a force multiplier than you'd think. Especially considering that you really need as many cells as you can get for a future part. The purpose of these guys is just to make it so you can't allow yourself to be pushed too far back during that last phase of the fight, when you're out of rockets and just dealing with guys from the bottom. Like if you retreat too far, the Revenants will kill you. Bada bing, bada boom. So, that's the red key section. And this was the hardest part of the map. Like, if you can get this far, you should beat the level. I actually did get this far once and then died of the cacos, which made me really mad. So the setup here is that when you hit the switch, a gigantic cloud of cacos comes in from above the wall all over the place, essentially. And what makes it even worse is not this guy. This guy doesn't make it worse at all, really. I'm trying to get some infighting between him and the other cacos just so he's not targeting me. But the real problem here is that hitting the switch also starts essentially a countdown. There's a pillar slowly dropping, which is blocking a gigantic mob of revenants from entering this courtyard. And if they start pouring in before the cacos are dead, you will die, just straight up. It becomes an impossible situation if they're able to get in here, because there's just not proper cover for them. There's not enough room to maneuver. It becomes impossible. So what this essentially is an efficiency check. Essentially, you have to kill the cacos fast enough that they're all dead before the revenants show up. And around this point, the Cyber Demon is also helpfully killed by automatic action. I'm not sure how. Exploding barrels, maybe? Either way, if you've, as I said before, if you let these guys get out into the arena, you just die. But if you manage to do the cacos properly, then it's really no problem. The only difficulty is just the fact that that column is relatively narrow, so it's somewhat tight to scrape off the following rockets. Like if the column were very large, then this would be trivially easy. And as it stands, it's still quite easy. Not really sure why you put them in a hook-shaped structure like that instead of one that would let them filter in more swiftly. It creates kind of this final cleanup phase, which is sort of annoying. Switching to the shotgun just so I don't accidentally kill myself. So from here on out, it's all kind of just an anticlimax, really. There's just a few traps and the exit. There's no big climactic finale fight at all. What passes for it is really quite gutless. Kind of a weird map overall. But I do appreciate like the aesthetics and the very compact layout. Kind of interesting. Kind of a fuck you the first time you see it, but I mean, everyone plays with saves first, right? To learn the lay of the land, whatever. So this next bit, this is his fault for letting me do it. That green area there there's an elevator basically, and when you get close, monsters pop up. But you can just take advantage of infinite height rockets to kill them beforehand. I mean, playing hide and seek with Barons and Hell Knights among these pillars isn't actually that dangerous. So if this happened at the start of the map, I'd probably just do it honestly, because that would be more fun. But anytime I've survived that fucking stair fight, I don't want to waste it. So there you go. Very generous to include that megasphere. It doesn't seem quite necessary, to be honest. So that switch lowers the column with the yellow key, and eventually it opens the way to back to the central area like this. Now, as you notice, I forgot to actually pick up the yellow key, which is pretty stupid. I'd already be out if not for that, but fortunately that blockheaded maneuver doesn't end up costing me the map. Infinite high flyers are so annoying. This is my own fault. Make sure to get the yellow key when you reveal the yellow key. That's the lesson here. But either way, like even when I fuck it up this much, this fight is not too dangerous, so I don't know. Kind of an anticlimactic ending to a fairly intense map. I missed the exit teleporter. Kind of a graceless run. Interesting level though. Some cool encounters.